Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, and welcome to this weekend's Shooting the Shit. This weekend, I'm joined by Frontier, and we're just gonna, shoot the shit for a bit. So, do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, mate?
Yeah, sure. So your name's Frontier. I run the Frontier Conflict Instagram page, Telegram page, Facebook page. Run a few platforms. Been doing it for about 4 years now from when I started the page. I'm from rural Wales originally. Ended up meeting an American girl, and I've lived in the United States for about 5 years. Currently live in Washington, D.C. And it's been a crazy 4 years. Still learning a lot.
Fair. What made you get into posting this kind of content?
So I've always had an interest in anything military. My dad had me when he was 64 years old. So I grew up hearing his stories growing up as a kid in World War II. And my childhood was spent watching, the World at War, a lot of old 1970s World War II documentaries and movies, and started collecting stuff when I was like 6. And then fast forward to leaving high school, the Arab Spring happened and Syria kicked off, and I was stuck in my bedroom as a 16, 17-year-old. And, YouTube was pretty uncensored back then. So it was just crazy footage being uploaded. And I started following pages like, I think it's Funker 530. I can't remember the exact, I haven't watched it in so long.
Yeah. Something like
but
that.
I remember, watching them guys early on and really getting into, I don't know, it was so different from what you see on the news, like the real combat footage, and then how it's presented on regular media. So yeah, got into that, and then 2014, annexation of Crimea. I was following Vice News, and they had the Russian roulette series, and that really fucking set me off. Like, hardcore obsession. Watched every single episode. I was downloading media, videos, anything I could. I actually managed to reach out to Russell Bentley, that American bloke that fought for the Russians and got murdered a few months ago. We didn't have a full-on conversation, but it was like a quick chat on Facebook, like, yo, like, what's up?
Fucking hell.
Yeah, that was crazy. Started the page like 2 weeks after the war started, because I was seeing all this footage, but no one place where it was being posted. And I had all of these different areas where I was watching content over the years. So I just decided to pull it all into one place and came up with a name in like 2 minutes, and here we are.
I think that's what most people's naming conventions for their pages are pretty loose and fast.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. So your page is pretty big. How do you think have you seen huge amounts of growth over certain events, or like, I don't know, what do you think helps your page grow significantly? Because there's lots of small pages, and I'm sure they want to, figure out how to get big.
In all honesty, collaborations was like one of the biggest things early on. I remember being like, I had a goal of like 100 followers in 1 year. That was like my set goal. And then I hit 1,000 in like a month. And that was like huge back then, you know what I mean? So then, with the algorithm recommending other pages, I just kind of like reached out to couples, bigger pages, maybe like 5,000 collabed, then 15,000 collabed, and then it just kind of grew and grew and grew. Early on was crazy because, the whole world was looking at what was happening in Ukraine, and that was just nuts. But what really amazed me early on is like how easy it is to get first-hand information now, without having to be a big corporation like BBC. Everyone's got a phone.
Yeah. You can just reach out to Joe Blogs and the unit that you wanted to mention.
Yeah, no, I think the first 3 months, I got in contact with a guy. He goes by London, but he's a Ukrainian soldier. Doesn't speak a word of English, and he's like 21 at the time. And he sent me like 5 videos, bunch of Russians in a frozen trench, him with an RPG, and then him taking artillery fire and just like laughing. And I'm just sitting in bed like, what the fuck? Like that's when it kind of became real, not just some footage. You know what I mean? Like
some footage from a faraway war. It's like some guy has sent this to you.
Yeah. So yeah, that was real turnaround.
And how? No doubt. And how do you find other platforms? Like, I presume Instagram is like your main platform, but how do you find other ones?
So yeah, Instagram's always been my main platform. I'm really not a big fan of Meta, but the nice thing about it is you can link their other social media, subsidiaries to that one account. So like my Facebook account, I just linked it up one day, created the Facebook account, linked it to the Instagram, did the same on Threads. Totally forgot about it. A year later, I've got 14,000 followers on both of them, and I didn't even know, because whatever I post on Instagram is automatically copied and pasted over. Telegram was the big change, because they do not censor anything, and the follower base on there is pretty insane.
Because you have a reasonably big Telegram, right?
Yeah, I'm closing in on about 30,000 on Telegram. It's better now. I've got a guy that he was a follower, and he's agreed to help moderate, because the problem I had for the longest time was the amount of trolls is actually insane. Like spamming, porn, you name it,
Russian,
all that kind of stuff. Russian bots. So he kind of takes care of that and helps in the posting of stuff, and I just kind of post my own stuff on there. And he's a really great help, good young lad, helping out running.
That's definitely because I've recently started a Telegram and Discord, and both of them I'm like, fuck, managing this is tough. It's fucking like, much like you, I'm a one-man army, as much as people think is more. But yeah, it's crazy. I had a similar experience with Facebook.
Yeah, I've definitely found people think you've got a whole production team behind you, when you run a page like this. But
you're like, nah, mate, it's just me and my phone and a fucking against the world.
Yeah, no, literally.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, and you've been working recently with the 25th Separate Airborne Brigade?
Yeah, so that's another crazy story within itself. I've been working with, he's a longtime friend of mine, JB. Page probably had 10,000 when we started talking. And he was originally a journalist. And we did some fundraising through Ukraine Freedom News, where we just kind of did fundraisers for trucks and cars and optics and stuff like that. And then he ended up going into the Ukrainian armed forces, joining up with them. And now he's in he's the head of the English media side of the 25th. So we've just been doing a lot of just trying to push the media team, raise awareness for what those guys are doing. Work really closely with Battles and Beers and Project Leaflet. Chris and Nick are absolutely awesome. Like really, really good guys. And a lot of the stuff that they, content that gets filmed over there. And the great thing with the 25th is how open they've been. Letting us in, seeing behind the scenes what they're doing and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty epic. And how does that, so like they have this English language media arm, how do they benefit from that? Is it for fundraising mainly, or is it?
There's a lot of ways. I mean, honestly, I found since starting this page, especially the Ukraine war, if you have a big following base, that's where you get donations. That's where you get media attention. And I'm sure you've heard a lot of, international volunteers say that, a lot of international volunteers don't want to get into media and put their name out there, but it's really the big way that you can get funding. And my buddy Arnie recently needed a motorcycle, and he ended up doing a sign your name on a bomb kind of thing, so you could get your name put on a munition.
Yeah.
And within 4 days, he got like 3,500, and they now have a motorcycle. So I think it helps in a lot of ways. But that's
that makes sense. That's pretty funny. That's a good way of raising funds, right? Especially like...
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Directly to certain units, because like large scale funding is pretty hard to trickle down to like your frontline units. Like it takes time, right? Outside of like ammunition and medical supplies.
If you think of the expenditure of war, it's absolutely insane. And especially, for a country like, situation that Ukraine's in. And not so much now, as we've seen recently with these strikes inside of Russia. But Russia's so big, they've been able to kind of keep a somewhat civilian economy alongside having a military economy there. Whereas Ukraine's kind of in a situation, they need their entire economy focused on production, war. Getting those funds passed down to regular units is hard sometimes, but social media is... I'm kind of wondering in future conflicts how it's going to affect them, because we're starting to see it in like Myanmar.
That makes
unit pages, content being pushed out. It's pretty wild,
That's a very good thing to think about. I haven't really thought about how it'll be spread to other conflicts, because it's like, like the Islamic State, they kind of they used social media to their advantage, as we all saw.
Pioneers of it in a really weird, fucked up way.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Is like
IS really
oddly
all that stuff. Never underestimate your enemy.
Well, everyone knew about them, right? They got their message out there pretty effectively through some pretty horrific means, but yeah.
If you think of it like, think of the way that militaries traditionally do it. New Zealand military, British military, US military, it's all kind of the same, where for a long time it's just been 30-second recruitment ads. Do you want to travel the world? Join the army. And there's not a lot of interaction between the follower base and the actual army themselves. Whereas with this, it's a lot more personal. You can get, personal messages sent out for donating, or like talking to the actual guys and seeing their social media and what they do. And it's a lot different.
A part of me does wonder if, showing people the reality of war as graphically as we are, will discourage people to participate. Because, back in the day, there was the whole, like, I think like First World War was that whole, like, the great adventure. No one had any idea of what they were getting involved in. And then the Second World War, they kind of knew, but they didn't really. And now it's like everyone knows what you're going to get up to.
I think at this point, there's no hiding it. It's the
horror.
I thinks it's a good thing, and in fact, it's one of the first reasons I really started the page was I just felt like there was a disconnect, because I saw the big difference, because growing up watching all of these documentaries and military movies and shows, and then seeing that combat footage and the reality of it, it just seemed like a really black and white difference. There was a huge black and white difference between the two.
Yeah.
And, being somebody who's interested in that kind of thing, and I've been in a lot of forums over the years, I've talked to a lot of veterans and, the struggles they have with PTSD when they come out. And I don't know, it's a very, mass media does it in a very kind of glorified way. I think the world kind of needs to see it's not all fun and games. It's pretty fucking grim, actually.
Yeah. I do feel it's getting grimmer. Like, FPV drones are... Like, I spent 7 years in the military. Did a couple of tours in the Middle East. I never saw any form of combat, but, like, the idea of FPV drones puts shivers down my spine. Like, that is so scary. I would not want to be involved in a conflict where that is a reality. It just looks so horrific.
Yeah, I remember when I was in college, I studied public services. So a big part of it, alongside police and fire service, was military. So we used to, go out with the British Army on weekends and stuff. And you talk to those lads, and this is around time Afghanistan, so they'd come fresh out of Afghanistan, and they'd laugh at the REME guys, like, oh, you're electrical, or like, or the guys in the logistics corps. It's like, oh, you're at the back. Well, in nowadays, like we've seen in Ukraine, even if you're fucking 20 miles back, FPV drones,
they're coming to find you.
Yeah, they'll find you. So there's not really a safe place on the battlefield anymore.
Yeah. I have experienced that shit firsthand. I joined the army and the infantry and then changed to intelligence. So I, you do not make that change without hearing significant amounts of jokes about being a pussy. So yeah. But no, fuck that. Like, makes me feel uncomfortable.
I put out a little thing on my Telegram. It was like a questionnaire thing, like, would you prefer to be in World War One or would you prefer to be in World War Three? And pretty much everyone said World War One. Because
it's funny.
As fucked as World War One was, if you're in a trench and you get
there's only like a few angles of attack in World War One. I mean, World War Three, you're back in a trench, so fuck.
World War Three, it's how long until you get turned into glass. Because with the weapons they've got nowadays, it's just insane.
It's no hiding. Yeah. I remember when we used to dig in, like we used to have to dig, they call them shell scrapes. It's like a place to sleep when you're in the open. And then you learn about how artillery munitions now punch into the ground and just kill troops anyway. And you're like, cool. Fucking sick. So I just spent 3 hours digging my own grave. Mean.
I think one of the big weapons at the start of this war that kind of put shivers down my spine was thermobaric munitions. I mean, that stuff crazy. And then when you see the footage going off, it's weird because you don't see necessarily. It's not like a huge explosion.
It doesn't look
shrapnel everywhere. Look that bad. But the way the soldiers are reacting to it, and then when you read what it does to a human body, it's terrifying.
Yeah, it's inhumane. It's fun. That's horrific. Especially because it's like, it is designed to kill troops in cover. So like, you can't hide from it because that's what it's aiming to do. Like, just didn't like the US use Moab, mother of all bombs, in Afghanistan above a cave system to do the same thing because they knew it would suck the oxygen out of a cave.
There's no getting away.
No, you think you're safe in that cave, and then it's all over.
I think we're only scratching the surface of seeing what's capable, because all the major powers don't show. I did a little video recently on these Perdix micro drones that the US Air Force was testing back in like 2013, and they drop them like 100 at a time, and off a conventional aircraft, and they use like a swarm. It's almost like swarm tech, so they can, the commander just draws a line and they follow it, and it's, right now we're seeing singular drones going out on missions. We haven't even gotten to the point now where we're talking 200 drones en masse, attacking it. Well, I mean, honestly, the attack on the airfield. 2 days ago,
that would be the closest thing, right?
that's the closest we've seen to that kind of thing up to now.
Yeah, and that would have only been what? So 120 drones over 5 airfields. So that's, I'm shit at maths, 23, 24 drones per airfield.
Yeah.
Around about. So, like, that's still not that many. Like, I mean, this is why I share those videos of those Chinese drone displays. Because, like, while they are displays of, like, this is cool lights, that can so quickly be weaponized. Like, they are controlling thousands of drones to move in formation. If you just put an explosive on every single one of them, you have a wall of explosives flying at you. Like, oh.
I think there's something to be said about cheap mass production of weaponry and, expensive, high quality, high tech weaponry. Because I always go back to, like, in World War II, how the Germans had, the Tiger tank, and it was like the most advanced tank of the time, electronic turret control and all that kind of thing. But if it broke down, you needed to send 3 miles behind the lines to get it repaired by a specialist. And it was so advanced, it broke down a fair amount. There's a lot of mystique around the Tiger. Whereas, the Sherman, you threw a crew in it, they got blown to bits. You wash the Sherman out and put a new crew in it and send it forward again. It was like...
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Real easy, simple tech.
Yeah. Low tech. Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I worry about with the West in a way, is we put so much focus on real high tech.
Yeah. I think like there needs to be like a balance, right? Because I think the way to defend against these drone swarms is definitely a kinetic option, probably to do with like laser or like, what are they, like heat waves? Is that the other thing they're like trying to build? Like that seems, because shooting them down is going to be fucking nigh on impossible with the amount that it like could possibly come. And then if you can't disrupt them through EW, but then I suppose if you're sending thousands, you can't put them all on fiber optic cable. So if it's like drone swarms, possibly EW's a good solution. And then if it's fiber optic based, you need a kinetic kill option. Yeah. But then like, I totally agree with what you're saying, because like we just saw the effectiveness of a few hundred, well, 100 something, couple of $100 drones, and what we're $7 billion US dollars, and like irreplaceable equipment ruined.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like, I think the French put out a video the other day of their like mobile drone manufacturing facilities that they're trialing. Like, that's fucking smart. Because like you just sit it, well, it's been probably further enough behind the front line that it's not going to get blown to bits, but like close enough that resupply is right there.
And it's there was one thing that kind of surprised me a couple of weeks ago. So I recently got in contact with they're a Ukrainian group here in DC that go out to all the senators and Capitol Hill, and they attend all the White House stuff to do with Ukraine. And they just did an event in New York where people were allowed to come along and build a drone. And like you'd sit down at a table and construct a drone, and then they had a counter, and they collected all these drones and sent them to Ukraine. And that's here in the US. So like that's just crazy. Like getting the community together, kids building a drone, and then send them off to Ukraine to a unit. Like that's
I would definitely go to that event. I would 100%. Slap a couple of HM stickers on it. Fucking gone.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah.
me.
I
That's such a funny event.
Yeah, they do events all over the US. I was actually surprised how big. America's a country of immigrants. So when I lived in Maryland, I never talked to my neighbors across the road. We just never got to talking. An elderly couple, and Ukraine war kicked off, and I started seeing the Ukrainian flag outside, and they were doing a fundraiser on the side of their car. And it turns out they're Ukrainian, and then their grandkids came over as refugees, and
Shit.
that was actually pretty. There we go. So just seeing these Ukrainian kids playing out in the yard, and just thinking about their reality, being dragged away from your home and your friends and your family and brought to a strange country. And that just kind of brought it home. And I told myself when I started the page I wouldn't let it get personal. I've made a lot of friends in Russia over the years, being child of the 2000s, 2010s. I made a lot of friends over in Russia, and I don't have any hatred towards Russian people. It's just when you see what a regime's doing, as far as Ukraine, Georgia, Chechnya in the 90s, and even what it's doing to its own people, it's just hard to not let it get personal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've learned Russian for years. Like I started learning Russian in like 2017, I think. And through that time, I've had like multiple Russian tutors. Some have been Ukrainian and some have been Russian. And I've, in the last probably like 2 years, I stopped doing lessons because there was only one thing you would end up talking about. And I just got sick of talking about it because if the tutor, through the website I was using, you couldn't get tutors in Russia anymore. But like the ones I already had, it's pretty hard to have conversations with them that get away from the one topic.
No, yeah, it's a tough one when I go to an Eastern European store locally, and it's run by a couple of Uzbek guys, but they have Russians, Ukrainians, Armenian. I mean, anywhere out in the Balkans, Slavic nations, all coming in as customers, and seems to be a tension between them. I understand tad bits, but I've seen a couple of people have like arguments in the store. About
Jesus.
And it's mainly a lot of the Ukrainians are really fucking proud of being Ukrainian, so they wear a lot of Ukrainian, shirts and hats, and they don't like hiding the fact that they're Ukrainian. But even over here in the States, there's a lot of tension.
Yeah, I mean, you guys love a protest.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Not surprised, especially in DC.
Yeah, it's you kind of know when anything's happening in the world because everybody comes out. I went to the I've been to the pro-Palestine and pro-Israel march in DC to cover it, and that was pretty crazy. I was at Union Station when they pulled down the American flags and burned them at the pro-Palestine rally. Got pepper sprayed accidentally, wasn't aimed. But yeah, that's pretty wild. I went out for inauguration day for Donald Trump. That was pretty crazy.
I bet
a lot of extreme Christian whack jobs. I'm talking like what was that church back in the day? I can't remember the name of them now, but they're like super conservative, like women in the kitchen.
Westboro Baptist Church.
Yeah, that's it.
They would protest like soldiers' funerals and shit.
Yeah, there was a group of them out. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, DC is a crazy place to live as far as politics goes.
Yeah, I mean, because it all comes there, right? It's like the beacon. It's like, I mean, because Europe has Brussels, but you also have like all the European capitals, so it's kind of split out, kind of like separated, but like the US is Washington DC. Like
Yeah, no,
everything's
I,
happening
I, I,
there.
I live right on the edge of kind of in the diplomatic area. Um, and it's crazy the amount of protests you see outside different embassies. I was driving past the Azerbaijani embassy, and they had a bunch of Armenians outside, with placards. And then I literally, I'm less than a mile away from the Russian embassy, and
Ooh.
they've planted a crop of sunflowers across the road from the Russian embassy. So soon, anybody coming out of the embassy, there's a crop of sunflowers, and like the whole fences are painted in Ukrainian colors, and it's
Yeah.
pretty wild.
Yeah. I was in, where was I? Like, I think it was Estonia or Lithuania over Christmas. And it was similar. Like, there was like barriers all around the Russian embassy. Like, you couldn't go near it because of the protests. And then there was like a Ukrainian cafe across the road that sold patches for Ukrainian units.
Yeah, no, so the one of the craziest things I saw was, I think it was like 3 days after war was declared, and I didn't live in DC at this point. I lived over in Maryland, and I drove down here, and there was a big protest outside the Russian embassy. And then when I went down to the Ukrainian embassy, there were so many people outside, and the craziest thing is they had the front door open to the embassy, and they were taking international volunteers. So they had papers stacked up inside of the front door, and you could walk in
Yeah.
and put your details down. And I got talking to a guy outside, and he was there on behalf of his son, who was a US Marine, and
Yeah.
his son was knowingly going AWOL to join the Ukrainians, and his dad was
Jesus.
getting his paperwork for him. And I was just like kind of in awe of this guy, like
Yeah.
being that supportive of your son and his choices.
Yeah. Yeah. That's because that's a big choice as a father. Like, I mean, your son's already a Marine, but like that's the next level, right? You're going to conflict.
Yeah,
I think I remember a similar story in London. They were doing like, you could go to like a park and they had like the International Legion, I think it was, and you could like sign up, and then I think it was like at the end of the week they had buses and they bussed everyone to Ukraine.
yeah.
Something
I remember
random like that.
media.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that stuff going on, and I think it ended up sort of backfiring in some ways, because as much as you had people going there with real good intentions with real experience, there was a lot of guys
Yeah.
that go there for internet clout.
Yeah.
And I remember early on in the war, there was an instance of some Western European blokes going over there, and they were filming themselves around the barracks. Next thing, a cruise missile came in and blew the barracks up. And I think it turned out that it was people filming on base for clout.
Yeah, had uploaded the geolocation then.
Yeah, and it only
Yeah.
takes 2 seconds to geolocate stuff these days. So like I know now, I'm in contact with a few guys in, mainly not the Legion. Most of the internationals that I know have left the Legion.
Actually, same.
Yeah,
That's
most
random.
guys, like I said, 25th, GRU, and then a couple of other independent units. But I know they're a lot stricter these days with who they take. Especially if you're going on the front line.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of bad press when random Western foreigners are getting killed. They aren't like, ex-military. They're just, I think was it that British kid who like, he was like 17, no training, and he got slaughtered within like a day. Like,
Yeah.
that's,
And I think, going back to what we were saying about media and the portrayal of war, I think a lot of people that go out to do that kind of thing don't always understand the reality of what they're getting themselves into.
yeah, no, absolutely. I remember, I don't know if you heard the story or saw the interview. There was a young Kiwi lad went over a couple of weeks ago. No training, just, wanted to go do his part. And started posting about it on social media, and me and Cole from Allcon messaged him and had a wee conversation around personal security and what to put on the internet and what not to put on the internet. And yeah, so hopefully he can look after himself a bit better and his unit. Like, it's not just him.
A couple of guys, and they called mobile phones missile magnets.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I mean, like, you look at like ISIS, right? Going back, 10, 15, about 10 years. Like, they knew that. They would bury their phones in the fucking desert without batteries in them. Like, yeah, some things don't change.
Yeah, it's fine line. There's so much footage that I've been sent or have seen that people don't always understand. The majority of footage that's produced doesn't get posted until a considerable amount of time later.
Yeah.
When I am sent footage, I always make sure to ask people, is this full OPSEC, per sec? Is this okay to post? Because there's a lot of responsibility, and I'd always advise people, if you want to start a page and you want to post this kind of stuff, because I support a lot of smaller pages, try to support a lot of smaller pages who want to do this kind of thing, but just be careful what you're posting, and make sure that it's on your conscience. If you post something and someone gets hurt over it, or it goes viral and someone gets hurt, then you do have responsibility in that.
I have like a kind of a segue, similar story. There was a young lad in France. I think he'd filmed himself on TikTok cutting like a power cable in a substation, like cut the power to like a massive city, posted it to his own Twitter account or his own TikTok. I can't remember which one. And I re-uploaded it, and it went pretty large. Like, I wasn't a big page at the time, but it got some considerable views, and he'd like deleted his page within like 30 minutes. It was like, fuck. Like, I don't feel bad for that kid because he's an idiot, but
yeah,
it's like, it's exactly what happens. Like, the internet is wild. Like, the speed at which things can go big.
Yeah, stupid decisions these days, you can't always get away with it as easily. There's no anonymity.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
glad I grew up in the age before phones.
I always laugh when I see all these videos of, these lads in the UK nicking cars, and they're like live streaming, they're running away, and I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, not only you made a bad decision of stealing a car, but you're also uploading it on the internet.
Yeah. You've filmed the evidence. You have the proof of you doing the thing.
Yeah.
Now, these don't care though. Like, I don't know how long it is since you've been to London, but bro, youth here do not give a fuck. Like, it's pretty crazy. It's a pretty, like, I don't think it's as dangerous as like the internet makes it out to be, but you definitely wouldn't try and like stand up to a group of teenagers.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Because, like, you know where it can go.
Yeah, it's kind of a similar thing here in the States. I've always said since I've moved here that the press in Europe just kind of blows it up. They make out that like every single street you walk down, there's going to be a gunfight or a mass shooting. But again, it depends where you are. Like if like in DC, for example, if you're in the northwest side of DC, you can walk around at night and you're not really going to run into anything. It's like any other major city. But, if you're in southeast, you've just got to keep your eye out a little more and wits about you just because the crime rate's higher. And it's like any other city.
Yeah.
And don't start getting in arguments, and I did have I had a guy pull a gun on me in DC. That was pretty wild.
Jesus.
That was the only time I've had that happen here in the States.
Definitely not counteracting your own story there.
Yeah, no, literally. But honestly, that was like a total one-off. And I tell you what,
This is the one-off, man.
Police, and the police response was pretty wild. It was like 30 seconds flat.
Okay. Jesus.
Some guy blocked up the road, and I laid on my horn to like tell him to move, and he got out with a gun. And I was like, all right, put the car in reverse and go around the block.
Fucking hell. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to counteract my own point, I've run past 2 dead bodies since moving to London. I moved here in 2021. And like, I don't run that much. But I did used to live in a shitty part of London. So,
it happens in any city.
Yeah.
One
was in a canal, and one was like the police were already there, but the body was still on the ground. It was just covered. So, game's a game.
I think my favorite part of the US definitely south. I mean, especially when you got unis, that's like proper America.
Yeah. I really want to go to Buc-ee's. That's like on my bucket list.
They're opening.
I've seen so many.
Yeah.
Where?
They're opening one
near
an hour away. Finally.
I think I got a mate that lives in DC that I met in the army, and he was telling me that there's one not far away. So when I go visit, we can go there. I'm like, fuck yeah. It just looks so stupid.
America is the land of extremes. I mean, I'm so used to it now, but I remember when I first moved here, the first few weeks, I was just walking around in Walmart with my phone, like filming, like just because I was like amazed how huge the bags were, and like
everything's just bigger.
I remember, so when I first came here, it's probably like my first month, and I was taking my father-in-law's dog out, and there was a coyote that had been seen around the neighborhood. It had bitten a couple people, so he gave me this little Makarov Russian, semi-auto.
Yeah.
He gave it to me with a little holster and just let me like walk the dogs with it just in case. And it's so surreal being British.
And that's
pistol on my hip. And I didn't even have a green card at that point. It was still totally legal. Because
that's
we're in
so crazy.
Open cap, all right, in Virginia. So it was
no one bats an eye. It's just
definitely different in the UK, where you get arrested for carrying a butter knife. Yeah.
That was like trying to buy a kitchen knife when I first moved here was so annoying. Like, it's hard to explain how hard they are to get. It's like silly.
I remember coming over here and seeing how easy it is to buy fireworks, and like I'd totally forgotten how hard it is in the UK. You can't just go out and buy fireworks.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to buy them in the UK.
Yeah, over here it's like your local petrol station. Like that be open too. You can just grab them.
That is so funny.
I don't know.
Oh, so weird. Oh.
I think it was there was one thing I wanted to talk about was how like Russia and how people perceived their military power prior to Ukraine.
Yeah, that's a good thing to talk about.
I think that's something that I was really fooled. Like, really, they kind of fooled me on that. Especially after 2011, I had this perception that the Russian military were really, getting a lot more advanced. You had the T-14 Armata coming out, and the Ratnik program and stuff like that. And I was just really threw me for six how hard they found invading Ukraine.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it showed the importance of logistics. Like those jokes you were making before about like Remy blokes, like they are so important. Like I think so. Like in New Zealand doctrine, like frontline infantry are carrying enough ammunition for like 3 or 4 minutes. So like you just need more ammo. So yeah, I totally agree. Like they were perceived to be the second best military in the world, and they failed miserably. To be fair,
Yeah, I think a lot of people are thinking, they have zero experience, but they really do have combat experience, whereas Chechnya or, the invasion of Georgia. It's not like they hadn't been to war. But
yeah,
kind of saying that it just seemed crazy to me that they'd had all that build up and then they invaded and faltered. Especially I mean, they're in the suburbs of Kiev. And
yeah,
I think they really kind of overestimated their own ability. I think that's one problem with Putin is he kind of surrounds himself with yes men
yeah, big
who are
time.
always going to confirm what he wants to hear.
Yeah, I think there's also like they definitely wasn't there lots of like their intelligence reporting was telling them that like Ukraine would fold. No one in Ukraine wants to fight. Like, what was it like? There's no like sense of identity in Ukraine. Like from what I read, all the like intel reporting that they were allegedly getting was telling them that like Ukraine basically was non-existent. That they would just surrender to Russia as soon as they tried. And then it was the polar opposite.
Yeah, I do think there is a sector of Russian society that genuinely believes that Ukrainians, think they're part of the Russian nation. And, you go out to the east and it's undeniable that there are Ukrainians in eastern Ukraine that, see themselves as more Russian. But, does it justify invading and annexing? The real thing that got me was the accusations of it had like being a Nazi government.
Yeah.
I was just like, I just don't really know where they pulled that from. Like, I know that there are sections of Ukrainian society just like any other country, and I know Azov had that kind of perception early on in like 2014, 2015, but I wouldn't say it's any more extreme than what Russia has in its own country.
No, I possibly say it's less.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just a part of like Russian information operations, though, where they just say shit, right? Like they just put out stories. They just claim shit that's like ridiculous, but they don't care.
They're very effective at it as well. I think RT was
Yeah.
pretty effective. When they had their English channel. My dad used to watch RT like every day.
Jesus.
Like I think they did that kind of middle ground where they did talk about things that like the BBC wouldn't talk about, for example.
Yeah.
Because as much as we like to think of ourselves as being free and independent media in the West, there are certain things to talk about.
The BBC can get fucked.
Yeah, but like
Also, I'm not paying for my fucking TV license. So stop fucking asking.
Yeah, I still I still use BBC iPlayer over here. I just use a VPN and use a random address pulled up, and it still is like, do you wish to continue? Do you have a TV?
Yeah. Do you have a TV license? Yeah, mate. Fuck off.
Yeah. But no, like I remember like, watching RT with my dad, and they just like sprinkle little bits of disinformation in there. And I remember, when 2014, when the annexation took place, I remember questioning myself, like, are the Russian troops in Ukraine? And this is kind of before I'd really started, I was like 16, 17, no, a bit older than that, like 17, 18, 19. And yeah, like I wasn't really that interested in it to start off with.
Yeah.
It was like another war, Afghanistan. But then when I watched that Vice Russian roulette series, that really, really kind of
Got you hooked.
What was happening over there.
Yeah. I mean, because like RT used to be similar to how Al Jazeera is, right? It's the same tactics as like you only slightly, well, maybe not slightly, but you focus your disinformation. You don't, everything else you keep legit. So then you have that sense of like normality, and then just on things that are super important to you, you can just give them a little nudge in the right direction.
I love that here in the States, they just don't try to hide it.
No, they just straight up. They're like,
just straight up. We know it's disinformation, but it's.
We think it's funny. So, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so one of the things I wrote about when I was at uni was like Russian information warfare, and it was interesting to see how like they have practiced information operations as like an integral part of military and intelligence operations since like the fall of the Tsars. Even before that, like this has been ingrained in their doctrine for like a very long time. Whereas like the West they got into information operations like during World War II. That was kind of when we started to be like, hey, this is probably important. We need to manage the narrative around what's happening. So there was like a lot about how it's so much more embedded in like the way they conduct their operations than it is in like, just the West.
Yeah, no. What surprises me is just like the breadth of it. It's If certain hashtags you can look up on X, and it's just spamming very similar stories of obvious bot accounts, like real obvious bot accounts. And I've noticed it myself even on Instagram. And it's not obvious in the way they do it. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like, when AI pushes out a tweet or something and you kind of tell it's AI because it's not written in a human way. I feel like they're a lot more sophisticated with it now, where it's really hard to tell whether it's real or not. Because the way that they go about it is just so sophisticated. I do wonder if we're doing the same. I wonder if, I'm not in Russia, but I wonder if there's a level of that going on from our side. I'm sure there is.
I mean,
China,
there are definitely information warfare units within the West. Like, I think they're public. I'll have a look. Let's just see if I can Google what I'm about to say. Otherwise, we might be deleting what I've just talked about. Information. I mean, I work with a guy who used to be in one.
I don't wonder what
77th Brigade. Yeah, they're publicly information operations. Yeah, so the UK has 77th Brigade, which is like a information and psychological warfare operations unit. They don't, from what my understanding, it's not the same type of operations, but like, information is a big part of warfare now.
It's huge. And, I think what we're seeing on Instagram and other social media platforms is just showing how much it's growing. I don't think regular media quite realize it. I think they're starting to realize, but I don't think they quite get the gist of how much it's kind of taking over from, traditional media.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Like, I mean, you probably get similar DMs to what I get, but like there's some people messaging you some pretty interesting stuff. And then there's also some insane shit, but
yeah, you do get the odd schizo. But on top of that, like you're saying, you do get some really, I'm just amazed, never ceases to amaze me the contacts that I've been able to make through Frontier.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Because like we were saying earlier, I'm a one-man band like yourself, and I remember when what was it? Is it Nigeria where the fast reaction forces? Trying to think.
Sudan.
Sudan, yeah. So
Yeah.
when that kicked off, in the first couple of days that it kicked off, I had an Australian follower reach out to me who was basically trapped in the capital city, and I didn't believe him to start off with. I was like, what's this guy on about? And he sent me a video from outside his window, and there was like tanks parked in the street and fucking smoke on the skyline. And I was like, okay, like you're not fucking around. And he was just sending me. This is like pretty early on when I started the page, but he's like sending me videos and stuff and talking about what it was like. And he ended up getting pulled out by, I think the Australian government linked up with the US, and they had some relief force that went in to go and get the Western contractors out or whatever. But it's so surreal.
Oh, man.
Like, I don't have a big media team, yet I'm still able to talk to people like that in situations like that.
Yeah, I also think not having a big team leads to speed. Like, it's like agile, right? You just check your DMs. It's not like he's DM'd some page that 6 people manage, so no one wants to really deal with the inbox or go have a look at what schizo stuff's coming in. So, yeah.
I found, as far as information goes, the best tool that I have is Telegram. Because, and especially in Russia and Ukraine specifically, the use of that app is so widespread, and it's so ingrained in both militaries that you can pretty much get on the ground footage immediately when something's happened. And it's super useful. I mean, from, when I was talking earlier about the prevalence of like neo-Nazis in the military, I've been collecting, I can send you these after we talk, but I've been collecting neo-Nazi Russian military Telegram pages. Insane how many there are. There's multiple related to the Russisch group. I know they're obviously the biggest that have been involved in a lot of stuff, but there's so many out there, dude.
What I find crazy is how open they are about it. Like, while the government accuses the other side of being Nazis, like, they don't hide. Like, they have Telegram accounts that are like just so clearly like neo-Nazi affiliates, and they're just like, we're big into it.
That terrorist attack that happened recently in Moscow, there were members there were members of the Russisch group that were involved in the capture of those Chechens, and it was posted all over the Russisch group page. But they had like SS Skull, patch on, and just crazy, like totally open about it, not trying to hide it. And these guys are affiliated with the Russian government and are paid to go out in, especially Syria. I mean, there was a lot in the Wagner group, and that started out. And it is pretty surprising how they don't try and hide it. You'd think that it would openly contradict their own story.
Yeah. And that kind of goes back to their information ops, right? They don't care that it's like disprovable. They just want to say narratives. They just want to put shit out there.
Yeah, the big one recently was the Macron and the bag of cocaine on the table when he met with Starmer.
Oh, bro, that was crazy. That was so crazy.
It really, it got to the point where I wasn't going to post about it because it's not typically something that I cover, but I ended up posting about it because it was just so crazy how widespread it had become. And like, my own father-in-law was convinced that it was, that it was real.
Jesus.
And you could see the video. Like, there's more than one angle.
Yeah, yeah. There was a high definition footage of what it was on the table.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah.
And
What
people were like, oh, if
I
it
mean,
wasn't
I did use it as a
why
good
would it die?
gauge.
A good gauge.
A good gauge of like, if a page or a Twitter account or a Telegram channel I'm in, like where they leaned and like how willing they were to like actually look into a story. It was a good barometer of like legitimacy, I feel.
Yeah, and it really didn't take that long. I wasn't one of those people who heard the story to start off with and was like, that's not true. Because, I was like, who the fuck knows what these politicians and world leaders do? But like
Yeah.
2 seconds of research and I'd found multiple angles of it, obviously being a tissue on a table. But
Yeah.
people just read it and repeat it. Just regurgitating.
Yeah.
I'm on I follow so many pages I'm not even involved in just to get information and like kind of a barometer of where things are leaning. And I'm on a what is it, like a Trump 2028 page or something. Whenever the next and
Yeah.
some of the stuff I see posted on there is absolutely wild, like crazy conspiracy stuff. And there's a fair amount of stuff that's actually pushed by RT, and I think they are kind of successful in their information war.
Yeah, definitely. I think I don't know. I'm on the fence of whether I think there's like people within the US government are like knowing participants or if it's just beneficial for their political careers to like be a bit stupid and toe the line of like a Russian narrative. Because sometimes I'm like, surely you don't believe that. Like, that doesn't make sense.
There's a podcaster I listen to. He's based here in DC, and he was like a Senate advisor for like 10 years, and he was kind of saying that something that he learned was what politicians say in person to each other and what they say in front of cameras is very different, because it kind of depends on
that
who's going to benefit and what it's going to benefit.
Yeah,
I do
worry,
make sense. I do kind of worry about US isolationism and being further away from Europe, because I do think the West is stronger together. We have common values, common goals, common ambitions.
Yeah.
I equally think it's about time that Europe starts playing more of a role in NATO and its own defense. I've been saying that for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't feel like pulling the rug from relations is really a beneficial thing for anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. But yeah, because like, how do you get NATO to play ball without convincing them that you're leaving? But also, yeah.
I mean,
I totally agree.
In some ways, it's worked a bit. When you're looking at Germany's defense budget now and Britain's defense budget's been announced, and there's a lot more spending happening. But at the detriment of political relations.
Yeah. It's also like the US has just burnt a bunch of their soft power for what? Like, yeah, I don't know. My mate that's in the I won't say what he does. He finds it very frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, it's been for a long time. And
I
feel like a lot of the discontent just comes from Americans looking at what's happening within the country, and just, it's like everywhere else in the world. Everything's getting more expensive. We see a lot more problems, but at the same time, people are looking at how much expenditure around the world the US spends, and they're kind of angry about it.
No, I totally agree with that stuff. Like, yeah, if you're watching your own country like struggle with homelessness and like drug problems and healthcare, but you know you're spending so much money overseas, that is super frustrating. Um, so yeah, I think I had a good chat with uh, Foxtrot.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to chumbacasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at chumbacasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
This actual username. Foxhole. Do you ever heard of that guy? He's like an ex-US military guy. It's like Foxhole. He like deleted his actual channel. I don't really know why, but he like rage quit.
Really?
He had like 25, 30,000 followers and just straight up deleted it. It was like, nah, I'm done.
You know what? I feel it.
Yeah.
Every now and then.
But like we had a big chat about this, and like I totally understand why Americans are frustrated with all this aid money and like, yeah,
We're seeing
it's tough.
Similar thing in Europe,
Yeah,
it's the AFD reform. I know in was it Denmark, their government just collapsed because
yeah.
what's his name pulled out.
Wilder.
Yeah, it's it's all over the world, and I think in some ways China and Russia and Iran, say they're like the major big players in the East, are kind of laughing.
Oh, big time. This is really part of their game, right? they use our values against us a lot for sure. No, I don't know. Europe's in a tough spot, man. Like, I mean, I talk about this most mornings, so people that listen to this podcast will be well aware of what I think. But like, if European politics don't, like, if these centrist parties that are currently in power don't start taking like massive moves against immigration specifically, they're just going to lose to like further and further right-wing parties. Like, every time you vote in a party and it doesn't get fixed, you just go to the next more extreme option and do it again.
That's why we see extreme parties the norm, because
people want extreme results.
This discussion's been going back so long now. I remember, originally with UKIP, when they started getting big, and people were talking about it then. And I remember I went to Paris in 2017, and that was an eye opener for me, because you don't really realize living in the UK, because we're an island, we're kind of cut off from a lot of the mass migration, or at least we were. But I remember walking around Paris and just being gobsmacked at how many people there were on the street, refugees, just crazy tents everywhere, like human excrement on the street, because there was no way of these people being housed or looked after. The services were they weren't even overstretched. There was just no way to look after that many people. And then at the same time, you've got most of the political parties saying there's no problem and that everyone's being racist for bringing up there's an issue.
Yeah, it hasn't got much better, I'll be honest.
Yeah, no.
I don't feel like much has changed.
Every time I've come back to the UK, it's kind of sad to say, like, I feel just like there's a deterioration.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of British people.
Like, every time I go back, things are just a little worse, whether it's
just a little,
the council aren't cutting the grass in the park as much anymore, or, my mum says that the bins aren't being collected as much.
Have you heard about Birmingham? I don't know how much you follow, like, UK politics. Like, UK.
I was halfway through watching a little Channel 4 thing about that before we got on call. I know they
Yeah.
declared bankruptcy and they weren't collecting the bins, stuff like that.
So they were going to cut the pay of the bin collectors by like 10 grand or 12 grand or something. So they all went on strike and they haven't picked up the rubbish in like months. So there's just literal piles of rubbish in Birmingham.
That's so great. Yeah, I used to work for the local council back when I was a teenager. I worked for the National Park Service. And I was always gobsmacked at how little those guys got paid for the amount of work that they put in. Because I wasn't full-time.
Yeah, man.
But it was very little money for a whole lot of work that they did. At the same time, I will say, it was definitely like one guy doing the job and 10 people watching, holding clipboards.
Yeah. Fair.
You know?
Yeah, but I feel like that's any civil service job in the UK. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I've seen, like, my day job is like corporate investigations and intelligence. And I see like government jobs for similar roles that I do. And it's like half the money. And I'm just like, who's doing that? And what, like, are they any good? Because you're not paying them like they are. So, like, are they just getting like the bottom of the barrel? And these are people that are supposed to be like, you know, doing investigations for like the tax department or like Companies House to like track down fraud. It's like, is this actually going to work?
Yeah, I've been surprised. I work in healthcare over here, and I'm surprised how many Brits are over here and they're working in the healthcare service, because they're just like, you know,
that's
we
interesting.
America, and we can make 3 times what we would working for the NHS.
Yeah. I mean, the NHS is fucked, mate. she's no good.
I've got 3 colleagues who are British, and that's just in my company, locally in my company.
Yeah, far out. That's pretty crazy. Anyway, it's been a while, so I won't keep you much longer. Do you want to plug anything before we wrap it up?
Honestly, just appreciate you calling out to me to get on this. It's pretty cool talking to you, and if you guys want to,
I'm sure we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, definitely. If you guys want to check out any pages, see 25th Airborne, you can find a link to them off my main page. Shout out to Project Leaflet.
I'll tag them down below.
Okay, sounds good. Castles, Barons, Badlands, all those guys. So, yeah, appreciate you guys listening. Thank you for having me on.
No worries. Thank you for coming. It's been a great time.
All right.
See you.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No